Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. Today we will be making a pet sympathy card to go along with this month's challenge that is entitled Radiant Rainbows. Our pet sympathy card will feature a cat as he starts to head toward the Rainbow Bridge. This will be an easy card for beginners to complete, so don't be afraid to do this card. It's a great easy card to try to do for one of your first projects. Okay, so let's start by looking at the supplies that we're going to use today. We will be using the Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme A6 cardstock. I have taken that and cut it to be 4 3/4 inches by 3.5 inches. We will use a white cardstock to create a frame around our card. When we finish it, this is cut to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. Then our card base is cut out of a blue piece of cardstock. It is cut 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches and then folded in half. The ink that we'll be using today is the Tim Holtz Distress ink. We will be using Wilted Violet, Salty Ocean, Mowed Lawn, Spiced Marmalade, Squeezed Lemonade, Chipped Sapphire, and Vintage Photo. For our ink for the stamping, where we'll be using the Tim Holtz Ranger Archival ink. This is a permanent acid-free black ink. For our stamps today, we will be using the Lavinia Fairy Path. This one is LAV 246. We will be using Mooch. He is LAV 404. And we'll be using the Fern Leaf, which is LAV 124. For a little bit of highlighting and glittering, we will be using the Sakura Jelly Roll Glitter Pen. We will also be using the Tim Holtz stamping platform. I like to use a platform because it allows me to stamp in the same place if I need to ink it up a second time or something. Just want to make sure that I line it up easily. Of course, you can still use an acrylic block for doing your stamping. That works just great. We will be using a Quickie glue pen because we will be gluing on our wings. These are actually cut out. I got a free clip art off of the internet because I forgot to order my fairy wings from bellosdesigns.com, so I'll have to order that on my next time. But I just took these and cut them out and placed them on top of the card. To be putting our card together, we'll use an adhesive running tape. For coloring our path, I've just got a couple of color pencils that will help us with that coloring process. We'll also be using a fine tip black pen. And we will be using a ball stylus to create our little sparkles here. And that's just by dipping in water, so we'll be sure that we have some water and some paper towels available to use as well. So now we can get started on making our card. Let's start by clearing off our workspace and getting our stamping platform out and placing our card down onto the surface. So I'm going to move these things out of the way so that we can begin the stamping process. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our path and stamp it. So I'm just going to lay that down here fairly close to the bottom. I have little pieces of scrap paper on the edge so that if my stamp goes over the edge, then it won't get ink all over my sticky grid that I stick the card down to. So now that I have, whoops, let's get that going the right direction where we want it. Okay, so let's go ahead and stick that to our platform. We will grab our black archival ink and ink up our stamp. Get it well coated. And then we will close it up and make our impression. Lightly rub over the whole stamp so that we can make sure that it's coming into contact with the paper in all areas. And let's see how that worked out. A little bit on the light side, so I'm just going to re-ink my stamp just with a little bit more coating so that we've got a good solid image. There we go. Much better image. Now I always try and keep a baby wipe in a little cellophane package. I keep it in a cellophane so that it stays wet while we are working on our project. And I just make sure that I clean off my stamp when I finish with as much removing of the ink as possible. So we clean that up and take this stamp off. Now we're actually going to go ahead and set our stamping platform aside for now, and we'll come back to it when we finish stamping the rest of the project. So we will remove our card and move our platform to the side. Now we're going to begin to do the blending of the rainbow colors on our card. We'll take a blending tool and begin with our purple at the top. And all that I'm basically going to do is just go in little circles and just a strip across the top. Alright, and you will probably notice that I am going to go ahead and clean up my work surface in between each color so that I don't get it all over the back of the card or all over my hands. So now we'll move on to the Salty Ocean. I will switch out the tops of my stamping blending tool. Get the blue and begin our second layer. And it's okay if it overlaps into the purple a little bit. That just makes it blend a little bit smoother across the way. And put just a little bit more blue on there. Make it nice and bright. Now we're ready to move on to the mowed lawn. And the reason you'll see me switching this out is because I really don't want to get our inks mixed up. So try and start with a different little top so that you don't get a different color of ink into your ink pad that you don't want. Alright, so now we've got our mowed lawn on there. We will now move on to the spiced marmalade. Now with this, what I want to do is actually don't want to go across the stones. So I'm just going to do a little bit coming up to the edge. And I actually don't mind having white around the edge showing up just a little bit, just because of the fact that that kind of gives it that mystical, heavenly look. Like the path has a little light glow just around it. So I don't mind at all that it doesn't go solidly orange up next to my path. And our final color for the rainbow portion is going to be squeezed lemonade. And the same process as before, where we will go around the path and not onto it. For our yellow. Alright, it looks like I got just a little bit of fingerprints on the green, so I'm going to put that back on. And one of the things that you can do if you find that your fingers get on your paper is cover it up while you are working on it, and you won't get quite so much of the fingerprint. And also will keep your hands a little cleaner. All right. Get my orange smoothed out a little bit. All right, so now we are ready to go ahead and go back to our pad. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my hands just a little bit so we don't smear. And I'll wipe up my work surface again. So I'm taking my stamping pad and I'm placing my card back down. Make sure that's stuck well. And now we're ready to put Mooch onto our path. You know, actually, let's go ahead and color in just a little bit of the brown on the path so that when we put Mooch on top of it, it'll already be colored in. So I'm just going to take a light brown for the base part of the footpath. You don't have to worry about doing this too terribly solid, and I'll show you why in just a moment. But just get a good coloring over it. Then we'll take a little bit darker brown, and where we see the dark spots here, we're just going to go ahead and color around where those dark spots are. Give just a little bit of shadowing. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and take the vintage photo, and I'm just going to use a very small little dauber and just lightly blend it over. That actually just smooths it out just a little bit. Kind of blends the pencil a little bit together as well. And this is why you didn't have to be too solid on your coloring, because we were going to be touching it up here with our vintage photo. Now we're ready to do Mooch. So we're going to take Mooch. We want him to be sitting just at the end of the path before he heads on over the bridge. So we'll set him there and close the lid. Now this is one of the reasons that I really like the platform, and I'll tell you why. The reason is that with these really solid stamps, sometimes it's hard to get a really good coating the very first time. So I put on as much as I can when I'm inking him up, but most likely he'll take an extra time or two of stamping just to get him solid. So let's see how much we can get onto him the first round. We'll press really hard to make sure that all surfaces of the stamp touch our paper. Give the ink a chance to absorb into it. Then we'll open it up and see if we need to do a second impression. Oh, we did a really good job. Looks like we've just got a little bit down there right at the very bottom of his feet. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp one more time. And close it up. Make sure that, since that bottom part seems to be where it didn't make contact as much, really press down hard on that. There we go. Much better. I'm going to quickly go ahead and wipe Mooch off. Even though he's already really covered with ink, I'll just like to keep from adding too much more. Him all cleaned up. And now we are ready to put our tree, our fern branches. So I'm going to, here, and I'm going to go ahead and cover up so I don't get ink all over my sticky grid. And we'll just place our fern leaf right about there. Press it on. Get our stamp inked up real well. Looks like I got a little bit of ink on there. Wipe that off so it doesn't get onto our card. Rub again on top to make sure it contacts the paper completely. And I'm going to go ahead and just a little bit more ink. Alright, now we'll go ahead and put a little bit of fern leaf over on the other side. Stamp up our ink up our stamp rather. All right. I think that looks really good, and now we will remove that from our stamp platform and set that aside. And we're ready for the wings. Now, as I said earlier, I just cut out, I went ahead and pre-cut them out, some wings here from a clip art that I had. If you've got the fairy wing little stamps, that's better, even better. You can then stamp it. But this works great for what I had on hand today. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get a little bit of color into my wings. So I'm going to take the Salty Ocean, and I may not even have to add any. I may have enough on my little, maybe a little bit more on my little blending tool here. Kind of do it on the outside edges. Just a little bit of blue. And then for the center part, I think I'll do just a little bit of the purple. Alright, and this is where we will use our Quickie glue pen. Line them up where I think I might like them to be. And then I'm just going to use the little glue pen to just put glue around it. This just allows me to have a little bit more control than a great big tube of glue. Glue that wing down, and now we'll do the other one. And now we've got our wings on there. Now, like we did on this one, I'd like to make a little bit of sparkly little orbs or dots to kind of look like it's guiding him towards the heavens. So what I'm going to start out with is taking just a little tiny, there's just a little bit of water. You probably can't even hardly see it in there. And then I'm going to take my stylus. You can use the end of a paintbrush if you'd like, just something that gives you a little bit of a rounded end. Have a paper towel on hand, and then I'm just going to dab some round circles around and then dry them up. Do one more larger one there. And one. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the small end, and we'll do the same thing. All right. Now, since we want that kind of little glow about it, we're going to use our glitter jelly roll pen. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to outline a little bit on his wings. I'm going to go all the way around the outer edge. Down the center. And on this little strip here. And it's going to be kind of hard to see on the camera. There we go. See if we can get you a little glitter look there. Then I'm going to go ahead and go to our little orbs and just kind of color them in with a little bit of glitter. This just gives it a little bit of that, to me, the look of guiding him towards heaven. So now we are ready to go ahead and put just a little bit of a frame around the edge of it. This kind of gives it a final edge, almost like a little frame, and draws the eye towards the center. So I'm just going to take the chipped sapphire and just go lightly around the edges to put a little bit of a darker frame around it. Now we are ready to put our card together, and then we'll be finished. So now we will take our card, lay it down, face down, use our running tape all around the edges. We will place it on top of our frame piece of cardstock. And then doing the same thing. Turn it over and place it on our card base. And now we are done with our card. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope you have a fun time creating this card. Be sure to check out the delbellosdesigns.com website for more tutorials on the design team page. Also, if you'll look below, I have listed the supplies that were used today, along with the links as to where you can purchase them. Thanks so much and have a great day. Little postscript here. I did not realize that my camera had stopped recording on me, so we missed one little step because it wasn't recording as I was getting ready to show you. So if with your black pen, if you just like to add just a few little details, adding some grass kind of creates a little bit more of a grounding effect. And then take just a little bit of the chipped sapphire and go around the base of Mooch to give a little bit of shadow.